One thing to consider when moving to a new area is how will you find your community. Now, there's lots of groups online that you can join, a gardening group or wine club, but for me, having that in-person meeting is fantastic. So I highly recommend joining a church's small group, and there is no shortage of amazing churches here in our local markets. So my husband Jeff and I are small group leaders at a church right up on top of this hill called District Church. And we wanted to form a group of other people who loved great food and amazing wine. So we get together once a week. It's called date night, and we all celebrate our marriages by breaking bread and talking about life in general. This week, I'm going to be making pot roast, and so come back to the office with me and let me show you how to make it. But first, let's stop and get some ingredients. We're looking for a good chuck roast. So if you look, we're trying to find something with as much marbling as possible. All this fat is going to make it juicy. So we'll grab one from the butcher and go. So we're looking for a good beef stock. You can make your own out of bones, but just because I'm short on time, we're going to use some box stock. So I use probably 2 per pot roast. Okay, let's start making our pot roast. I promised to put the recipe in the comments, but for now, I want you guys to really start cooking without measuring. If you guys can learn to do this and just focus on cooking techniques versus quantity amounts for things like soup and pot roast, it's just gonna give you so much peace in your life. I see too many people hung up on measuring things exact when it really just doesn't need to be for a dish like this. Pot roast is one of the most simple things to make. Anyone can make it and it's gonna turn out delicious. So let's get started. So you saw us go to the butcher earlier today and pick out this beautiful piece of chuck roast. It's got lots of marbling in there. One of the best places to buy meat is from a local butcher. We've got several local butchers here. We were in a hurry, so we jammed to the grocery store for this one. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by getting our pan nice and hot. We are seasoning all the sides of this meat. Okay, we're gonna add it to the pan. We wanted to make sure that our meat is nice and dry because if you put it into hot oil, it's gonna sizzle just like that. We're gonna give this a hard sear on all sides of the meat. As you can see, I've browned all the sides, just turning it this way. The thing about these French enamel pots is once they burn, they're really continue to burn every time you cook something. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add a little bit more of our fat. We used olive oil before. Now with a wooden spoon or a heavy duty spatula, we're gonna clean the bottom of this pan, get all those crispy bits off. The crispy bits are called the fond and we're technically deglazing. See, I'm really cooking out the fat and the flour. It's starting to stick just a little bit again. So I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of this stock. Okay, now we're gonna add the pot roast back into the pot. And we're just gonna add some stock to the pot to cover the meat completely. We've got some stock in the pot. And now I'm gonna add just a little bit of our homegrown Navigate Ranch crushed tomatoes. You can obviously buy the can. And this is a 32-ounce jar. So we're gonna add about half of it and let's see what that looks like. Okay, let's add all. And this is what I mean about not using a recipe. I just wanted to get enough to cover the meat. And now we're just gonna mix that all together. Okay, I've actually added some more stock to completely cover everything. And we're gonna add a bouquet garni, except for we're actually just gonna throw things in the pot. So we're gonna add a little bit of rosemary and, a healthy dose of thyme. Gonna put our lid on and we're gonna put this in the oven for between 3 and 4 hours. My guest list went from 8 to 12, so now I have 3 pot roasts going, and I've taken the lids off to let them reduce so I can have more of a gravy. Okay, it's about time. My guests are gonna be arriving in about 20 minutes, so let's pull the pot roast and see how it looks. That looks great. So I was gonna take it out and put it on a platter, but as you can see, it is so tender and delicious. It is just falling apart. So I'm just gonna leave it in the pot and plate up my plates individually. Let's do one now. I've got my mashed potatoes almost done, and let's make a plate. So remember how I told you guys, just get used to not measuring. So it's just a correction, but basically my sauce is too thin. I didn't add enough flour at the beginning. So what I've done is I've taken the contents out, set it aside, and I'm just gonna make a quick roux, and I'm gonna thicken the sauce up to make it more like a gravy for those mashed potatoes. Okay, so our roux is ready. This is kind of in between a blonde and a dark, but my guests are arriving, so I've got a boogie. You want the pot to be boiling, and we're just gonna add in a little to thicken it. The more you cook out this flour, the more you caramelize it, the better it'll taste. But the secret is the butter will melt the flour into the broth and make this nice thick gravy. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, we have the consistency that I'm looking for. So we're just gonna pile it on top of the mashed potatoes, grab a nice piece of crusty bread, and always clean up your spill marks here. And there you go. Who wants the first plate?
This is amazing, Kelli. Thank you.
So good.
Kelli, it's the best.
Thank you, thank you. Cheers, cheers. Cheers.